I want to show you a number that most financial advisors will tell you is not enough. $500,000. $500,000. Not 1 million, not 2 million, not the $3.20 million that Fidelity's retirement calculator spits out when you plug in your age and income. $500,000. And the question I want to answer in this video is whether that number, invested correctly, with the right lifestyle calibration around it, can actually produce complete financial independence. Not theoretical independence, not technically you could survive independence. Real independence, the kind where you wake up on a Monday morning and the only question is what you feel like doing. Here's the answer before we get into the mechanics, because I believe you deserve the conclusion before the argument. Yes. For a significant portion of people, depending on where they live, what they actually need to live well, and how they invest, $500,000 is enough to stop working permanently. And here is the thing that makes that answer more interesting than it first appears. The question of whether $500,000 is enough has almost nothing to do with $500,000. It has almost everything to do with the number on the other side of the equation, the monthly cost of your life. And that number is far more within your control than most people are comfortable admitting. My name is Daniel. Let's do the math. The $2 million myth. According to the most recent Northwestern Mutual survey on retirement, the average American believes they need $1.46 million to retire comfortably. A significant portion say $2 million or more. These numbers are not pulled from careful analysis of what retirement actually costs. They are pulled from fear, from the vague, persistent anxiety that whatever you have will not be enough, which conveniently keeps people working, saving at inadequate rates, and consuming financial products that promise to close the gap. The financial industry benefits from your belief that the number is always larger than what you currently have. An anxious saver is a product-buying saver. A genuinely financially secure person has much less need for financial products. So let's replace the anxiety-generated number with arithmetic. Financial independence requires one thing: enough passive income to cover your living expenses indefinitely without depleting the principal that generates it. That's it. That is the entire equation. If your life costs $2,500 per month and your investments generate $2,500 per month, you are financially independent, regardless of whether your account balance is $500,000 or $5 million. The number you need to accumulate is not determined by a survey. It is determined by your specific monthly expenses multiplied by a factor that makes the income sustainable indefinitely. And that factor has a name: the 4% rule. And what it actually means: in 1994, financial researcher William Bengen published a study that has become the foundation of modern retirement planning. He analyzed every 30-year period in U.S. market history and asked, what is the maximum percentage of a portfolio someone could withdraw annually, adjusted for inflation, without running out of money over a 30-year retirement? His answer: 4%. This became the 4% rule, and it has been stress-tested, updated, and debated extensively in the decades since. The core finding has held: a diversified portfolio can sustainably support a 4% annual withdrawal rate over a long retirement without depleting the principal. Here is what this means in practice for $500,000. 4% of $500,000 is $20,000 per year, approximately $1,667 per month. If your life costs $1,667 per month or less, $500,000 is enough. Full stop. Mathematically enough. Not enough to live lavishly. Enough to never work again if you don't want to. If you're willing to accept a slightly higher withdrawal rate, say 5% to 6%, which carries more risk but may be appropriate depending on your time horizon and other income sources, $500,000 generates $25,000 to $30,000 per year. $2,083 to $2,500 per month. And if your portfolio is partially invested in equities generating 8 to 9% average annual returns, which a balanced stock and bond portfolio has historically produced, you can withdraw 5% to 6% annually, while the remaining growth keeps pace with inflation, meaning your purchasing power doesn't erode over time. $500,000 at 8% average return generates $40,000 per year. Withdraw $25,000. The remaining $15,000 in growth stays in the account, increasing the base, which increases future returns. The portfolio doesn't shrink, it grows. Slowly, but it grows. This is the mechanism. This is how $500,000 functions as permanent financial independence, rather than a number you spend down over time until it reaches zero. The real variable is what your life costs. Here is where most people stop reading, because this section requires honesty that is uncomfortable. The question of whether $500,000 is enough for you is primarily a question about your spending, not about the $500,000. The person whose life genuinely costs $1,500 per month is financially independent at $450,000. The person whose life costs $8,000 per month needs $2.40 million. Same investment strategy, same returns, completely different number, determined entirely by the cost of the life being funded. So the real question is, what does your life actually cost to run? Not the life you imagine living, not the life your income currently supports, the life you genuinely need to be comfortable, healthy, connected, and satisfied. For most people, when they are honest about this number, it is lower than their current spending, because current spending includes a significant amount of lifestyle inflation, status consumption, and habitual convenience spending that doesn't correlate strongly with actual happiness or satisfaction. The research on this is extensive and consistent. Beyond a baseline level of comfort and security, additional consumption produces rapidly diminishing returns on well-being. The car upgrade from a reliable used vehicle to a luxury SUV produces a brief period of satisfaction, followed by rapid adaptation to the new normal. The restaurant spending at high-end establishments produces similar experiences to the same meal cooked at home, minus the connection and atmosphere, which are available at significantly lower price points. None of this means you should live without pleasure or quality. It means you should be honest about which spending actually enhances your life and which spending is automatic, habitual, or driven by comparison to people whose financial reality you cannot accurately assess. The person who has genuinely calibrated their spending to their actual values, not their marketed values, not their social values, their real values, frequently discovers their number is substantially lower than they thought. And a lower monthly number means a lower portfolio target. A lower portfolio target means reaching financial independence years earlier than the conventional timeline suggests. What $500,000 looks like in real life? Let's move from abstraction to a specific scenario. Marcus is 42. He works in project management, earns $78,000 per year, and has been building his investment portfolio for 15 years. His current balance is $512,000 invested in a low-cost index fund portfolio, 70% equities, 30% bonds. He owns his home. The mortgage was paid off 3 years ago, a decision that dramatically changed his monthly picture. His monthly expenses, property taxes and home insurance, $380. Utilities, $180. Groceries, $420. Transportation, he drives a 2017 Honda. He owns outright, $180. Insurance, maintenance, fuel. Health insurance, he'll need to source this independently, $380. Personal spending, entertainment, miscellaneous, $460. Total monthly expenses, $2,000. His portfolio, at 8% average annual return, generates $40,960 per year, $3,413 per month. His passive income exceeds his expenses by $1,413 per month, every month, without him working a single hour. That $1,413 surplus either accumulates in cash as a buffer or gets reinvested, further growing the portfolio that funds his life. Marcus is not wealthy by the conventional definition. He does not drive an impressive car. He does not take first-class international vacations. He has never owned a boat. Marcus is also completely financially free at 42. He will never need to work again unless he chooses to. The $500,000 was enough because he built a life that $500,000 can fund. The inflation question. The objection that arises reliably at this point in any conversation about living off investment returns is inflation. If your expenses are $2,000 today and inflation runs at 3% annually, your expenses will be approximately $2,600 in 10 years and $3,200 in 20 years. Doesn't this mean a fixed portfolio eventually fails to cover a rising cost of life? It does if the portfolio isn't growing. But the strategy we've described doesn't leave the portfolio static. Marcus withdraws $2,000 per month from a portfolio generating $3,413 per month. The $1,413 surplus stays in the account and compounds. Over 10 years, that surplus, reinvested at the same average return, meaningfully increases the portfolio's base, which increases future returns, which keeps pace with or exceeds inflation over a long enough time horizon. The 4% rule itself was designed with inflation in mind. Bengen's original research modeled inflation-adjusted withdrawals over every historical 30-year period, including the high inflation decades of the 1970s, and found the principle survived. A withdrawal rate of 4% to 5% from a diversified portfolio that grows at 7% to 9% long-term historically keeps pace with 3% inflation with margin to spare. This is not a guarantee. It is a probability, a high one, based on the longest available historical record of market returns. No investment strategy is certain, but this one is based on the most extensive evidence available, and the evidence is substantially supportive. Social Security changes the number further. Here is a variable that dramatically improves the $500,000 picture for anyone who has worked for a significant number of years in the United States. Social Security. The average monthly Social Security benefit in 2026 is approximately $1,976. For a married couple where both spouses qualify, combined benefits frequently reach $3,500 to $4,500 per month. If Marcus collects $1,800 per month in Social Security at 67, a conservative estimate for someone with his work history, his $2,000 monthly expense burden requires only $200 per month from his investment portfolio from that point forward. $200 per month from a $500,000 portfolio represents a 0.48% annual withdrawal rate. At that rate, the portfolio doesn't shrink, it grows. Marcus doesn't just not run out of money, he dies with significantly more money than he started retirement with, which can be passed to people or causes he cares about. The $500,000 strategy, properly implemented, combined with Social Security income that most people discount too heavily in their planning, produces a more comfortable retirement than most Americans working to accumulate $2 million expect to have. The lifestyle calibration nobody wants to do. Let's be direct about the harder part of this equation. $500,000 funds a comfortable life for someone who has built a genuinely low-cost life. It does not fund a lifestyle built on $4,000 monthly housing costs, $900 monthly car payments, $600 in subscription services, and $1,200 in restaurant spending. It's the main reason that calibrating $5,000 in restaurant spending has always been good. That life costs $6,700 per month minimum and requires a portfolio of $2 million or more to sustain on investment returns alone. The person who has built that life and wants to achieve financial independence at $500,000 faces a different challenge, not the investment math, but the lifestyle restructuring. This is where most financial independence conversations get uncomfortable, and most financial media changes the subject. Because the honest answer requires acknowledging that a significant portion of what most people spend money on in affluent American life does not produce proportional life satisfaction. And acknowledging that is harder than picking a better index fund. Some specific questions worth asking honestly. Does your housing cost reflect what you genuinely need and value in a home? Or does it reflect what your income could support at the time you made the decision? Does your car reflect transportation requirements or social signaling that you've been conditioned to provide without consciously choosing to? Do your recurring expenses, subscriptions, memberships, services reflect active, regular use of things that genuinely improve your life? Or do they reflect decisions made months or years ago that you've never revisited? These are not comfortable questions. The answers frequently reveal thousands of dollars per month of spending that doesn't survive honest scrutiny. Spending that, redirected, could compound into the difference between financial independence at 45 and working until 65. The path to $500,000. For anyone whose portfolio is not yet at $500,000, the question is how to get there. And the answer is more accessible than the number suggests. At $1,500 per month invested at a 7% average annual return, the portfolio reaches $500,000 in approximately 16 years. At $2,000 per month, it arrives in approximately 14 years. At $2,500 per month, achievable for many dual-income households making deliberate choices about spending, it arrives in approximately 12 years. None of these timelines requires an exceptional income. They require a meaningful savings rate, 15% to 25% of income, maintained consistently, invested in low-cost diversified funds, and left alone while compounding does its work. The difficulty is not mathematical. The mathematics are straightforward. The difficulty is behavioral. Maintaining a savings rate during a culture that applies constant pressure to spend, upgrade, and consume in direct opposition to the accumulation that financial independence requires. The people who reach $500,000 are not the people who found a better investment strategy. They are the people who built and maintained the habits that the savings rate requires for long enough that the compounding became visible, and then became large, and then became freedom. What freedom actually costs. Let's close where we should have started. What does freedom actually cost? Not the theoretical price, the real price. The price in dollars per month of a life where you wake up without an alarm and spend your days doing things that matter to you, learning, creating, connecting, contributing, resting, experiencing. For most people, when they actually build that life in their minds and price it honestly, without the car payment for the car you drive to signal status, without the housing cost for the neighborhood you chose to impress people whose financial lives you know nothing about, without the spending that happens automatically because the income was there to support it, the number is lower. Often dramatically lower. And a lower number means a lower target. And a lower target means financial independence arrives sooner. $500,000 is not the right number for everyone. For some people, it's more than enough. For others, it's a starting point that needs to be larger. The right number is the one that, invested conservatively, generates enough passive income to cover the cost of the life you actually want to live. Figuring out what that life costs is the most important financial calculation most people never make. Once you know it, the rest is arithmetic. And arithmetic, given enough time, always solves. Now you know.